Thank you so much for watching online. My name is Sky and I serve on Arise Kids. If you want more information about our services, visit us online at www.arise.church. We hope this message speaks to you today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
You know, we had taught a couple of sessions already, and I'm sure they had a lot of questions, and I was looking forward to being able to pour out some of the 40 plus years of wisdom that I've acquired over my life in church and being a pastor and all the wonderful things that you think you know. And I remember meeting together, so we're meeting under a tree outside with the pastors. There's probably about 40, 50 pastors there. And I told them, hey, if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to answer it. But inside, I'm thinking there's probably not a question these guys have that I wouldn't have an opinion on or an answer to give. And, you know, again, I'm thinking maybe they want to know more about small groups. Maybe they want to know about structure of this or that. And the first question that's asked of me, I was speechless, and it was simply this old guy stands up and he asks the question, does a man having more than one wife at the same time disqualify him from ministry? Never been asked that question in my life, and I stood there and I said, you guys can have more than one wife at the same time, you know? And then I said, why? Why would you want more than one wife at the same time? I'm trying to just handle one wife at one time. And literally the worst question and answer session I've ever had. And it was funny because they couldn't let it go. Even when I said this is a cultural thing, I don't have an answer for this. They couldn't let it go. The guy kept wanting to ask. You know, they were telling him, just sit down already and be quiet. And I spend most of the time like this on that. But anyway, God has a way of humbling you when you think you know it all. Needless to say, when we went to the next conference, no question and answer session. All right. The last day that we were there, our flight left in the evening, and we had a few moments at the hotel, had some time to interact with some of the employees, and I had some time to talk, and I was talking to this young lady, 25 years old. Way that they describe themselves, they identify themselves, they love letting you know whether or not they're married and have children, and I kind of realized a lot of women there really, they all want to be married. It's just part of their identity there in their culture. And I'm talking to this young lady, and I'm asking, are you married? Do you have kids? You know, and she was single. And she told me something that I've never had someone tell me before. She said this, that when I find my husband, I don't care if my husband has an affair. I don't care if he has a girlfriend. I don't care if he goes out and cheats on me, as long as he takes care of my children. That's all I care about. And I've never had anybody tell me that before. And I told her that. I said, oh, my goodness. And, you know, she knew I was a pastor. And all my life, I've never heard somebody say that. You know, and I kept telling her, even as we're leaving the conversation, I said, please just pray, believe God for a good man. You can find a good man. I almost wanted to grab her by the shoulders and just say, don't settle for less. You know, and as we start this series called This Is Us, you know, that's a series that's on television about a family and a family story. But we thought, what a great series as we talk about families and relationships, because here's the thing, wherever you are in life, this is us. Wherever your marriage is today, this is us. It is what it is. We don't expect people to have perfect lives. You can't have the perfect marriage, but I'll say this, we can all be better. We can be better in our life, in our relationship. If you're single here today, I'd really encourage you to listen up. If you want to be married at some point, listen up. And here's the thing, if you're single, don't ever settle for less. Whatever God has placed on your heart, whatever you have a standard for, don't settle for less. Because if you do, you're going to pay a price for it. And maybe you're not at that point of saying, well, I don't care if they have an affair on me or this or that. But there are people that prematurely get into a relationship where they settle for something because of some sort of pressure. You know, I heard somebody say that men marry women thinking that woman will never change. And a lot of women marry guys thinking that the guy will change and get better. And the problem is when they get married, men don't change and women do change. And I tell you, don't settle for less. Believe God that God has somebody out there for you. If you get into a relationship, even if you're married for 6 months and you never had kids and you get divorced, that will change you forever. You want to find the right person that you can spend the rest of your life with. Relationships can be challenging and they're hard. They're hard. It's not easy. And as we talk about this, my message today is actually a message I've given before. And I thought, do I need to change this? Do I need to come up with new points? And I realized, no, we're still trying to learn the old ones. We're still trying to master whatever I talked about last year, because most of you don't even remember what I talked about last year. So I kind of resolved that this might be my message all the time, that we're just going to hit this over and over and over because we need to get this. My wife and I, we've been married now. In a couple of months, we're actually going to make 20 years of marriage. Yeah, 20 years. And I can honestly say it's been the best 20 years of Shinobu's life, and it's been good. She's still not laughing when I say that. But we've had our struggles, and we can still fight with the best of them. We still bump heads. It's hard, but it's worth it. It's rewarding. If anybody tells you marriage is easy, they don't have any idea what they're talking about. There's going to be ups and downs, and if you're expecting to get married and have happily ever after, you're in for a surprise, because there are going to be moments. I mean, you got two people that are different but in love, and when you're dating, it's so easy, but once you get married, it all changes, right? You go, who did I marry? It's not easy, but it's worth it, and we want to work on that. We all have core needs in our life, but when those needs aren't met, what happens is we begin to drift. We begin to drift apart. We begin to go in different ways when needs aren't being met, and if somebody else comes along into that relationship, and if you're thirsty enough, you'll take a drink from another well. And we want to guard our marriages against affairs and other people coming in, meeting our spouse's need. Deuteronomy 5:18 says very clearly, you must not commit adultery. It's never was God's will for adultery to happen, but the bottom line is it does happen. It happens to people that come to church. It happens to people that don't come to church. It happens to people that are in the ministry, not in the ministry. Whether you're a pastor or not doesn't make you immune from having an affair. It happens, and it's devastating, and it ruins families, and it ruins children, and it hurts so many people. We all here we could all tell each other what we aren't supposed to do in our marriages. Maybe you've been only married for a month. Maybe you're not even married. You probably know what you shouldn't do. But you know what I realize is knowing what not to do doesn't automatically mean that you're going to do what you're supposed to do. Just because you know the wrong doesn't mean you're going to do the right. Intentionality has to be a big part of having a healthy marriage. You have got to be intentional in doing the right things and doing the right things over and over and over. If we don't do the right thing, somebody else will come in and somebody else will fill that need. Let's be intentional in making that our spouse's needs and our own needs are met. And if they aren't, you're probably going to have a hard and possibly dramatic conversation. But I would encourage you, married couples, if your needs aren't being met, talk about it. Talk about it. Begin to have that discussion in navigating to a healthier place. So how can we affair-proof our relationship so we don't drift apart and have somebody else come into the picture? There was a book written years ago called His Needs, Her Needs by Dr. Willard Harley. The book has sold over 2 million copies, and I would highly encourage you, if you don't have it, get on Amazon and order it, because it is probably one of the best books ever. And over the course of his counseling career, he would do a survey with thousands of couples, and he would simply ask, what does your spouse do that makes you most happy? The interesting thing is that what most women would list as their top 5 were the bottom 5 for the men. And what men would list as their top 5 were actually the bottom 5 for most women. Can you see the problem today? We don't value what the other person needs. And while most people would deny that they could ever get involved in an affair, the hard truth is that under certain conditions, any one of us can fall victim. Any one of us. You're just one bad decision away from ruining your entire life. No one is immune. And when there's enough cracks in the foundation, you know what? The house is going to come down. The building is going to come down. And you might have seen on the news where buildings or apartments have collapsed. There were cracks in the foundation that nobody saw. And eventually, when there's enough cracks, it all comes down. And we want to make sure that our marriages today are on a solid foundation. 1 Corinthians 7:4 in the Message translation says, marriage is not a place to stand up for your rights. Marriage is a decision to serve the other, whether in bed or out. And when we don't serve each other, we're going to begin to drift. And drift is so dangerous because rather than a quick current, when you drift, most times you don't even realize it. Maybe you're in a boat, maybe you're surfing and you've lined up with something so you don't get close to the reef. And then you start talking, you start daydreaming, and then when you look back up, you didn't realize, but you're so far away. And a lot of times in marriage and relationships, we're drifting. We don't realize until we look up and the other person seems so far away. And we wonder, is it even worth it to try and make this work? There are different stages of life that can induce drift. It can be a hurt or a disappointment. Maybe it was an argument. It was a hurt that you took and you could never let it go. You never resolved it and you've hung on to it. And now you may be arguing about a bunch of other things, but really the root is the hurt that you've never dealt with. And you're always at each other's necks now. Another thing that can begin to induce drift in our life is simply, I heard the definition of conflict is unmet expectations. You have expectations that are not being met. And whenever expectations aren't met, conflict begins to ensue. If you're married here today and you have expectations of your spouse that aren't being met and you're getting upset about it, but you haven't vocalized it, I'd encourage you to let them know. What do you expect? Don't just assume that your spouse can read your mind. We aren't mind readers. We need to have communication to talk about these things. And all the married people say, we serve each other by determining each other's needs and meeting them. And so for women, what he found, and again, this is most women, not every woman, but for most women, their number one need, Dr. Harley found, was affection. Everybody say affection. Affection, he says, is the glue that holds the relationship together. It's the glue that holds it together. Now, this isn't sexual. It's not a sexual thing. It could be a compliment. It could be holding the door. It could be holding hands. It could be just giving a hug. It's simply being a gentleman. Just because we got married doesn't mean that chivalry has to be dead. Men radically underestimate a woman's need for affection. And here's the reason why. It's because for most guys, I think affection would be at the bottom of our list. Men aren't necessarily affectionate creatures. We don't get together and touch each other. You ever notice how men hug? Even when we hug, we hit. We hit back. We got to hit. We're not just going to hug and rub. We're going to hit. Because we're men. We're not affectionate. There's an unwritten rule. When you go to a movie with a guy, you need an empty seat between you. We don't want to rub arms. We don't want, but you see women together, women are a lot different. Women will touch, something's on there, they'll just touch each other's face and hair and hug, and they can even hold hands at times, and it's not weird. Affection is a need that women have. And affection comes easy to men when you're dating. In fact, all the right things come easy when you're passionate about something. And when you're dating, you're affectionate, you're loving, and you're doing all the right things. There are things that you would never dream about doing. You'd always see your girl. You make sure that you've brushed your teeth, and now you've put on a fresh shirt, and you've taken a shower, and you brush your hair, and you do all the right things. You never burp in front of her or do any other bodily functions in front of her. And you're just trying to be a complete gentleman. And then something happens once we get married. And I heard somebody put it this way, that men are hunters. And what a hunter does is they see their prey, they shoot it, they bag it, they got it, they won, they go home, and they're satisfied. And once you get the girl, you won. Now you can relax for the rest of your life. And then we change. And where you wouldn't do any of those things anymore, you lay in bed and you wait until your wife comes back so that you have a surprise for her in the blanket that you're going to fan. And it gives you great pleasure laughing at her disgust. We change. A lot of times people say in leadership, what got you there won't keep you there. But I believe this in dating and romance. What got you there will keep you there. It will keep you there. A lot of times we need to think back. What are some of the things we used to do? What are some of the ways that we used to serve? And guys, I'd say she didn't marry you because of your body. She didn't marry you because of your good looks. She married you because you were affectionate. And somewhere along the line, we lose that. 1 Peter 3:7 says, the same goes for you husbands. Be good husbands to your wives. Honor them, delight in them. As women, they lack some of your advantages. Or the King James would say the weaker vessel. And even a better word for that is simply, she's a delicate vessel. You know, it's not that she's less than, a delicate vessel. Compare that. Think about a hammer. If I had a hammer is durable. You can pound things with it. You can throw it off the roof. It ain't going to break. Compare a hammer with an iPhone. An iPhone is delicate. An iPhone can do a lot more than a hammer can. It's actually worth a lot more than a thing. But is it as strong? No, it's delicate. It's a delicate thing. And a woman is a delicate creation. Much more complicated than an iPhone. But she's a delicate vessel, and it says, but in the new life of God's grace, you're equals. Treat your wife then as equals. Listen to this, so your prayers don't run aground. Guys, if you're wondering, why doesn't God answer my prayers? I'd say, how are you treating your wife? There's a direct correlation. He goes, if you want God to hear your prayers, treat your wives as equals. Treat your wife well. You're not to lord over her. Treat her well, honor and delight in them, show her affection. I have homework for all of us today. As you leave this place, I'm going to ask you to go home and ask your wife this question on a scale of 1 to 10. How am I doing on my affection? Now, ladies, don't give them a lecture. Ladies, don't go back 2 years and tell them what they did wrong. Don't do that. He'll never ask you anything again. Just give him a number. Give him a number. And now for you men, when I told you to do that, you just got terrified. All the hair just fell off of your legs. You're like, that's the worst question I could ever ask. But I want to challenge you guys. Go ahead and ask it. Panda Express, do you know that Panda Express, every time you eat there on the receipt, they have a survey. If you complete that survey, they give you free food, a free side dish. And most people don't even do the survey, which I don't understand. I do it. I get free food. If I'm willing to do that, why would we be afraid to ask our spouse, who can give us the most important feedback, how am I doing? How am I doing? Where do I rate on this scale? Here's for men. Most men, they found his number one need is physical fulfillment. Physical fulfillment. We live in a sexually charged culture. Almost every song you hear on the radio is about sex. The world wants to tell us, take the boundaries off. You don't need to wait and do it God's way. Hey, just do it how you want. But you know, the Bible tells us today that sex is really in the boundaries of the covenant of marriage. That is God's way. The world will say that's asinine, that's backwards, that's an old way of thinking. I'll tell you today, if you aren't married, just trust what God says. Trust what He says. He's not trying to limit your freedom. No way. He's trying to protect you from the hurt that can come from experiencing it outside of marriage. God's trying to protect you. His boundaries aren't there to bind us. It actually frees us when we do it God's way, when we look at what the Bible says. Most women would underestimate a man's need for sex as most men underestimate a woman's need for affection. God has wired men in that way that their number one need. And wives, I would say this, is that it's part of your responsibility to make sure his needs are met. And you say, why is it mine? Because you're the only one. You're the only one. It's you. You are the team. You're not taking it for the team. You are the team. And if you imagine it this way, if I had a cup of water on this table and you had a woman sitting here and you had a husband sitting here and he was thirsty, but the only way he could get that drink is if you handed him the water. And your husband is there and he asks you, I'm really thirsty. Do you think I can have a drink? And she's sitting here and she goes, well, I'm kind of busy right now. I kind of don't feel like it, but maybe tomorrow I can give you some water. I was okay. So the next day comes, the husband says, well, I'm still thirsty. You said maybe today. And then she's sitting there, well, I kind of got a headache right now. I don't even want to reach for the water. I really don't feel like it. Come back later. Well, the third day comes and now his throat's really dry. And he's like, it's been 2 days, 3 days now, and I'm really thirsty. Can you please give me some water? And she's like, mister, with that attitude, you're not getting any water. You're the only one that can meet that need. And it is a need that men have. And when you think about this, that number one need, how many layers of tension it can create in a man's life. And really, he's just trying to, men, what are we doing? We're living life trying to figure out, how can I get more water? How can I get my wife to get me more water? And in fact, guys, I would tell you this, if you want more water, ramp up the affection. If you ramp up the affection, she will take out the fire hose and just drain you down. If you're affectionate. In fact, I didn't tell this to the other services, but I think some guys here, you need some help. You know what foreplay is, right? Yeah. Foreplay helps you get more physical fulfillment, especially if you have young kids. Some of you guys need to learn foreplay. And let me tell you a couple of things of foreplay. I'm going to get very graphic right now. If your kids are here, you should have sent them into kids ministry. But here's some foreplay, guys, that you can do if you want more sex, all right? Especially if you have young kids. Give your kids a bath for your wife. Brush their teeth. Get them ready for bed. Do the dishes. Cook dinner once in a while. Wash the clothes. Fold the clothes. Turn your wife on, I'm telling you. And all the women would say, yeah, women, you missed a good, all right. There's that fulfillment, that need. And ladies, in your relationship, don't discount that need he has. Because you don't want your husband going through life thirsty. Because eventually there will be somebody else who would want to give him a drink. And if you're thirsty enough, you'll drink dirty water. You'll go, you've seen that in movies, and you see them, they're in the desert, and they find this oasis, and the water's brown. They'll drink the dirty water if they're thirsty enough. Affection is the environment of marriage. Sex is the event. Sex isn't the event. We want affection, but sex isn't the environment. We want affection as the environment. Sex is the event of it. 1 Corinthians 7:3 says, the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. We're here to serve one another and it works together in meeting each other's needs. We never want it to be about what we want, about what we're not getting, and then we begin to not give that. No. Come on, let's make sure that our spouse's needs are met. The second thing that every woman needs is this. She needs intimate conversation. Intimate conversation. Conversation is hard, but it is essential, especially in the world that we are living in today, with our phones that are constantly distracting us. We are the most distracted generation to ever walk on the face of this earth. Do you realize that? How many accidents happen because people are simply distracted? And it's not uncommon to go to a restaurant and to see a group of people sitting at a table. You could be at a table and you have all of your friends, your real life, in-person people there with you, and yet you're engaged in a conversation with somebody who isn't even there, and you're missing out of the opportunity that's there. It's not uncommon to look at couples at a restaurant, and they're sitting there, and they're both on their phones and not even interacting with each other as they wait for the food. I made up my mind. I want to live in the moment. I want to live in the moment. I don't want to be attached to my phone all the time. I was listening to an audiobook, and this pastor was saying, there's a great feature on phones now. On the iPhone, it's called Do Not Disturb. And you can put it on, and when that's on, your phone doesn't vibrate or it doesn't ring. You can see the missed calls and text messages. And this is what he said, that he's decided in his life that 24 hours a day, he's on Do Not Disturb. And when he has time and he looks at the phone, he catches up on those things, but he realizes hardly anything that ever comes through is ever urgent. And most of the things that ever happen in conversations we have on our phone, they're never urgent. They're just distracting. And they're taking us away from the real FaceTime and the real conversations that we need. Husbands, your wife needs your intimate conversation. It's so important. Intimate conversation. Stop letting people in to your time together. You can be at the table alone with your wife, but you're letting other people in every time you're on your phone. You don't have to post every moment of your life on social media. There are people that want to post, don't do it. People don't care about your life as much as you think. Honestly, people don't care about my life. They don't need to know every single thing you're doing. Live in the moment. Live in the moment. It amazed me how we've gone to concerts, and through the whole concert, I'd see someone standing there filming the concert on their phone. I'm like, really? You rather watch it through the screen than watch it in person? Live in the moment. We want to live in the moment, even with our spouse and the people we love. Live in the moment. It happens when you're dating. Guys can do it when you're dating because you're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out this mysterious, beautiful creature sitting in front of you. How can I win her heart? You want to know everything about her. You go through that intimate conversation. But again, something happens after we're married and we get comfortable. We begin to drift away from that. You know, I wrote this down. A woman can have an affair with a toad if the toad says the right words. If the toad says the right words. You ever have any friends and they have an affair and you're like, what? She cheated on him with him? Oh, her husband's so good looking. Why did she cheat? It wasn't his looks. He said the right words. Words are powerful. And husbands, if your wives are dry in that area and somebody else comes along, eventually she'll take a sip of that. She needs your intimate conversation. She fell in love with you because of conversation and affection. She will stay in love with you because of conversation and affection. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Try to make time every day to have conversation. Maybe it's just asking questions, but just let her talk. I had to learn the hard way because men are fixers. We want to fix everything. And we'd have conversations. My wife would tell me stuff, and I'd be like, oh gosh, I can't take this. Okay, hang on. Let me tell you what you need to do. If you don't like her, stop hanging out with her. Do this, do that. Don't go there. Don't do this. Da, 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 da. Fine, you're welcome. And eventually it got to the point where my wife one day blew up and she just said, stop trying to fix everything. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to listen. And I had to learn, keep my mouth shut and listen. We're fixers. If I call my guy friends with a problem and they don't give me an answer, I just wasted a phone call. I just didn't call to connect. I want an answer. But women are wired differently. Husbands, just listen. Just learn to listen. And ladies, be patient with us because we don't think like you think, and a lot of times we don't get it. Be patient. We're trying. And here's the last thing. The second thing that most every man needs is recreational companionship. Recreational companionship, doing things together. Doing things together like when you were dating. You know, a lot of you ladies here, for example, maybe you didn't like football, but he was going to watch the game and you would sit next to him on the couch. The game was on, you hated it, but you did it because you wanted to be with him and it filled his tank. Then you get married, life gets busy, and for all of us, we start taking shortcuts and it's easy to get lazy in our relationship. But your husband needs recreational companionship. Women can drop what they're doing and easily find time for affection or intimate conversation, but they can be too busy for sexual fulfillment or recreational companionship. You know, a man can drop almost anything for sexual fulfillment or recreational companionship, but they can't fit in affection or intimate conversation in the schedule. You know, his wife may be, well, I need to talk. Well, no, I got to do this in the garage. I got to fix this. I got to do these things. We'll talk later. And the next thing you know, he's packing everything up and leaving. Where are you going? Oh, well, Harry just called me and the guys are going to go out. And so, I was going to go spend some time with them, but I'll be back later. We'll drop it all for that because we're wired and it's a need. And women, I want to encourage you with your husbands, do stuff with them. Do stuff with them. Maybe it's getting in the golf cart, watching them golf. Maybe it's going and sitting with them and just watching him as he's fishing. Like, wow, you cast that pole so far, or whatever it is. That was amazing. You don't even know what far is good. You're just, wow. When he catches the pole pot, when he catches the rockfish, you're like, whoa, that's one of the nicest fish I ever saw, And you just stroke his ego. And you just being there with him fills his tank. It's a need that he has. That's why the guys like hanging out with the guys. They build that bond, but he needs to hang out with you too. And there are going to be things that you don't enjoy doing. Just go along with him. Maybe it's just going along with him from the ride to his next job or this or that. And wives, don't try to tell him how to do it or do it better. Just be there with him. Just be there with him. And you'll find that it's going to fill that void in his life. It'd make a huge difference today. Ultimately, if we all want stronger and better marriages, we all need God in our life. We all need God. We don't need, or you're not going to have a perfect marriage, but I believe your marriage can be better. Just making it better. It's just one click and just continually one click getting better in our life. Today maybe you're at that area and you've drifted so far apart and you're thinking, I just want to divorce already. I don't even want to work on this. I challenge you to make it work. And I'd say don't listen to your feelings because your feelings will lie to you. They'll lie to you. Don't listen to your feelings. It's not too late to work it out. In fact, your feelings will follow your actions. You say, well, what am I supposed to do now? Well, I gave a husband, I gave a wife 2 things that you can start doing in your life. And if you will take those 2 actions, if you'll step out in faith, I promise your feelings will start to follow. You're like, well, I don't feel like it. Step out in faith. Start doing it. Start meeting your spouse's needs. Stop fighting for what you want and just meet their needs. And as you begin to meet their needs, let your feelings follow your actions. Maybe you've considered having an affair. Maybe you might have even crossed the line, or you're in a dangerous place. I trust what God is saying today. Serve your spouse. Who knows what miracle can happen when we get into the position of humility and serving rather than wanting our needs met, wanting everything to make us happy, but rather we say, how can I serve my spouse? How can I honor them? How can I meet your needs? For all of you, your homework today in all of the categories is simply to ask your spouse on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I? And when you hear your number, don't argue it, don't debate it, just receive it and just say, how can I be better? How can I get to the next one? And you know, if your spouse says, well, you're a 3, and you're like, oh, you want to 3 me on this? I'm going to 2 you on the next one. Don't do that. If they say you're a 3, but you think they're an 8, just be honest. Because we're never going to get better if we can't be honest and evaluate where we are. And if that's what your spouse thinks, it's what they think. If they think you're a 3, then you're a 3. Work on becoming a 4. Work on becoming a 5. Work on becoming a 6. See how you can meet their needs. And you know, when we begin to do that, you're going to see God begin to work. You're going to have a better life, a better family, a better relationship, a relationship that honors the Lord. Can you close your eyes with me today? Lord, we thank you. God, we just pray. I pray for every marriage here that you just work in our lives. And Lord, it might take faith at times that we'll simply keep walking in faith to honor you through our relationships. Lord, I pray for people here that are single, for those that aren't married yet, that God, you have the right person for them, that they're not going to settle for less, that God, you can connect them to the person you have for their destiny, for their dream. And that God, together they can build a life and a relationship and possibly even a family, Lord, of one that honors you. And I said earlier, God is the foundation. And maybe today you've never taken the step of accepting His grace and mercy in your life. Jesus came and died on the cross for us. Why did He do that? It's because He had to pay the price for our sins with His life. We couldn't pay it on our own. You can't be good enough to get into heaven. It's not on our good works. It's only by the grace of God. And today, if you're here and you've never taken that step, this is an excellent opportunity. You want a better life, a better marriage. It's not that the challenges go away, but your foundation gets stronger. The wind's still going to blow, the storms are still going to come, but your foundation is going to stand. And you're here and you say, I want that foundation. I want His strength. I want that mercy. I want us all to say this prayer together. Say it with those who might be saying it for the first time. Say, Father God, I asked Jesus into my heart. I believe Jesus died for me. I also believe that Jesus rose from the dead and He's alive in me today. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for forgiving me. In Jesus' name, and we all said together,